Good morning, and welcome to this fourth video cast introducing my new book, Belonging, Finding the Way Back to One Another. In fact, you can order your copy now at a significant discount at the address scrolling across your screen using the code 20BELONG. Today, we're going to be talking about mothering and surviving this season. We know it is stressful, and today I am with the perfect guest. Kristen Wheeler is the host of the podcast, The Supermom Wannabe. Welcome, Kristen.
I'm so happy to be here. And that word perfect is a 4-letter word in my world. So,
And we've already had a little bit of problems with technology, so it might not be perfect, but it's going to be good.
yes.
So I thought that I would start out by quoting something that I read in the New York Times about mothering in this season. In fact, it was an article about one of the roles that a lot of moms might be getting ready to begin, and that is doing the online education. And this mom wrote, listen, it's not working, this distance learning. With 4 kids, she is inundated with WhatsApp messages sending unrealistic lessons, including a whole musical score, and concerned questions about how the kids are doing. Ask me how I'm feeling, she wrote. Falling to pieces. It's only the second day. If we don't die of coronavirus, we'll die of distance learning. And then I love what her 8-year-old son posted. He said, my mom's getting stressed out. My mom is getting really confused. We took a break so my mom could figure this stuff out. And I'm telling you, it's not going good. This is stressful.
Isn't that the truth?
This is a stressful season for moms, perhaps beyond all others. And it's also a time when many moms are feeling alienated because there are a lot of places you can't go. You can't get together with a lot of other families and their kids. There might not be school. There might be a hybrid of school. So, Kristen, what do you say to moms who are stressed out and maybe feeling a little lonely, like they don't really belong anywhere except for places where they don't feel comfortable, like the online learning?
Oh, the online learning, no one warned us about this. And I have to say that I started out wanting to homeschool and do only homeschool. And I was going to be the perfect homeschooling mom. And then I had kids, and it was, you know, not for me. So I don't think that we're not all built to homeschool. Just
No.
like we're not all built to grow our own food. And if that's your thing, that's amazing. But I need to run to the store and get Twinkies, just like I need to send my kids to school. And so the the idea that it was like, oh well, we'll just have the moms homeschool, like no one checked with us.
Right. Homeschool while you're also trying to figure out dinner, maybe work from home. And then there is this pressure, if you look at social media, to make meaningful moments, to find the silver lining in this season that really is just
Right.
a big mess for a lot of families.
Right. And the mom world is so full of shame and shaming, and we are living under a mountain of shoulds, and we already were before any of this even started. So to add this, I should be homeschooling, I should be creating a, a, a learning environment for my kids, just adds one more thing that we feel like we should be doing that no one ever showed us how to do, or that we maybe not even was built in us. And so I think that we as moms are, I think I can speak for most of us, when we are just living under the weight of this is all up to me, and this is how I should be doing it based on what I've seen, what I've heard, what social media is telling me, what the news is telling me, and it just adds a lot of stress.
So, why do you think the mom world is filled with so much shame and things you should do? Especially right now, you should make your kids comfortable wearing a mask and they should wear one at all times, which seems ludicrous to me. I do believe in masks, but I can't see getting a 6-year-old to wear one all the time. And you
Right.
should fix home cooked meals, and you should have arts and crafts for your kids, and you should keep them off the television. And that all brings a lot of shame.
Well, I think that somewhere down the line, motherhood and the role of mothers got idealized. And we think we should do something based on it having worked for someone else.
Mm,
So if all organic worked for this mom and I admire this mom, then that must be what I'm not doing right. I must have to do what she's doing. Um, Homeschooling is the right thing for this family, and I really think that they're doing a good job and their kids are great, so that must be what I should be doing. And the list goes on and on. And her house is always clean, so in order to be successful, that must be what I should do. She's a size 2, so in order to be happy, that must be where I should be at. It just goes on and on and on, because we're looking at, and social media, as much as I
yeah.
absolutely love social media, has amplified and compounded that message of, oh, what a beautiful life they have. I must be doing something wrong. I should do it the way that they're doing it, when we really don't know what their kids' personalities are like, what's going on behind the
True.
scenes. And so we build this ideal of a life that may or may not really work for our own kids and our own family and our own household.
So, what is a supermom wannabe? Your podcast is called Confessions of a Supermom Wannabe. So, it sounds to me like you've taken another path than the should highway.
Well, I think that, I built the supermom wannabe because I am living under my own mountain of shoulds and my own burden of, oh, this is how I should be doing it. And in order to be so I'm a perfectionist. So I think in order to be successful, in order to raise healthy, happy, successful kids, this is the criteria of what I should do. And that idea has blown up so much in my head that I spent so much time trying to hold it all together, trying to I make a joke about my socks matching. I am so bad at laundry that I throw all of the socks in one laundry basket, and it's kind of every man for himself. And I was so stressed about even little things like socks, because when you're trying to run out the door and you're trying to find people's shoes and you're trying to get to work or whatever it is, there's no time to match socks. I would grab whatever it was, and it'd be a striped long sock and a short white sock, and that was my life. And I felt so guilty about, why can't I get it together? I can't even get my socks to match. So it was built on this idea of, oh my gosh, I am stressed about something that people aren't even seeing. That so I started to just admit, hey, listen, my socks don't match. Hey, listen, I've had a half-eaten lollipop stuck to my son's dresser for over a year. It's just little things like that that people started to go, oh, hey, you think that's bad? My kids had peanut butter and jelly for every meal of the day for 3 straight days. And it began to open up a conversation of, me too. My house might be clean, but I haven't cooked a meal in 3 weeks. Or, my socks might match, but I yell at my kids every day. So, it's this little things and big things that we can all connect over, that, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one that didn't have it together. And I admire you, and you're saying you don't have it together either. Let's have a conversation. So it's
So,
this idea, this super mom wannabe, wanting to be perfect, but accepting that we're not.
and so it sounds like what you're saying is that one answer to feeling disconnected in this season of social distancing is to tell the truth,
Yeah,
to be
absolutely.
honest about the things that are working and maybe aren't working.
Hmm.
And where do we do that? How do we do that with all the limitations put on us? I think so many moms are feeling depressed, quite honestly. As a therapist, I see that in my office, and are feeling really alone and isolated. They're with their kids, but of course, you're not going to confess your depression, your desire to yell at your kids or to pick up their toys and throw them at the wall,
Done
or
that.
take
Picked
your
up toys and
teenagers,
thrown them out the car window.
or to take your teenagers and lock them in a room with no windows or doors, because teenagers don't like social distancing and they are not following those rules. They're sneaking out in the middle of the night doing what teenagers do in the middle of the night. So, where can moms find this connection in authenticity that you're talking about?
Well, I think it starts with, and this is a big, hard idea, so I don't want to take it lightly. It's, I think, a lifelong journey, but understanding that belonging to yourself is the most important thing.
And that sounds
And
important. So, tell me what you mean by that.
well, I think you have to decide what that looks like for you. What does it mean? And it's something that I've been asking myself almost every day all summer. This new idea to me of what does it look like to belong to myself? What do
Because
I love about
people, Kristen, if I can interrupt you for a minute,
Sure.
hear that and kind of think of the Oprah isms that say belonging to yourself means I'm enough. And if there's anything mothers know today, they are not enough. Not enough to do it all perfectly, not enough to do it all well and find all the meaningful teaching moments that we're supposed to
Right.
find. So, what does belonging to our true selves mean? Because I think that's the beginning of this way back to belonging.
I think it means this is what works for me. And if it doesn't work for you, that's okay.
Wow.
And that's
Oh, here
hard.
it is, especially as a young mom. You're looking
Mhm.
around and thinking, I should do what my mother thinks. I should,
Right.
breastfeed on a schedule every 2 hours, or I should wait till they cry and then breastfeed, or I should make them cry and put them on some sort of a schedule. Or with teenagers, I should limit their social media to 30 minutes a day. Good luck with that one. Or we shouldn't have television or turn the internet off at 8:30 at night. And so finding what works for you, I think, requires that you have some self-compassion. So,
Absolutely.
self, so that self-compassion says, I'm going to try this and it might be a mistake, but that's how we learn.
Right. And that's
And
how we can extend more compassion to ourselves when we
yes,
make mistakes.
right. I mean, it's certainly, I hope with our kids, we want them to try, whether it's playing the piano or doing a math equation or learning to parallel park, which I never did learn. And if you make a mistake, we say that's okay. That's how you learn.
Right.
Mothers are human beings too. So it's a willingness to make mistakes with compassion.
Mhm.
It's a willingness to sometimes go against the rules. And especially a lot of our audience might be in the evangelical Christian camp. We have a lot of rules, unfortunately, in that club about what moms should do and what kids should wear and what they should say and what they should go to and not go to. And sometimes breaking those rules seems like it's leading us to more alienation and loneliness.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think that when it comes to your faith, I think we've gotten away from what really is between you and God
Mm.
and our connection with God or something bigger than ourselves. And when we can believe that there is a plan for our lives and that there's something bigger than us, I think that's for me anyway, that centers me and causes me still to look inward and really examine what it means to belong to my true self, even in times of stress.
My son taught me a lesson about this when he was about 6 years old. At the time, we were attending a church with a lot of rules, a very legalistic church. And one of the rules was that you should not go to the movie theater. I don't know how we ended up there, but anyway, we decided to leave. And my son had a lot of friends. He's always been in life for the fun of it and loves people. And he was confused why we were leaving. And I said, well, that some people in our church believe that you shouldn't go to movies. And his eyes got so wide because from the time he could watch a story, read a story, he loves story. His eyes got wide and he looked at me and he said, oh, Mom, I think God would say, enjoy.
Mm.
And I think that was the beginning for me to know, okay, belonging starts at home with belonging to myself and what I know is true for my kids. I don't always know what's true. Don't through the years, but God gave my two kids to me.
Mhm.
I didn't earn him, don't deserve him, but somehow he knew we'd be a match. And I think that's true for every mother out there, that in God's infinite wisdom, he gave your kids to you, not so you would follow a herd, which is what we mistake belonging for. Like if I
Right.
join a group that
We
believes,
mistake it for fitting in.
right. So if I join a group that believes that children should only be seen and not heard, then I belong. But actually, that causes us to disconnect from our true self
Right.
because most of us moms don't want to just see our kids. We want to hear from them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, the best moments that I've had with my kids were not in those teaching moments that we all think we're supposed to have based on, again, what we think we should do or what experts are telling us we should do. It's talking about real things in life over a milkshake in the car, through the drive-through, So Brene Brown, I just recently read one of her books, and it struck me and it has stuck with me that the most important thing that we can do for our kids is not teaching them a foreign language. It's not
Right.
bottle or breast. It's not an expensive, fancy education. None of those things are bad. But the most and the best thing that we can do, the most important and the best thing we can do for our kids, is for them to feel like they belong with us. No
Mm.
matter what, that they belong. They belong. I belong to them. They belong to me. We're a perfect match. And no matter what, they belong, and teaching them to know that they belong.
So, what I'm hearing you say is that we have to belong to ourselves, know what we value, what's important for our family, what we can let go.
Mhm, mhm,
Certainly, perfectionism is one of those things. I mean, perfection is never the right goal and it's not attainable.
mhm.
And then we can belong uh, to our families.
Yes.
And I think what you said a few minutes ago was really important because families are messy. And certainly during this coronavirus season, when we're all together all the time, we have seen the good, bad, and ugly about each other.
Yes.
And so we need to belong to something more than just us and our family. And as you said earlier, that's to God. I think about when my daughter was 12 years old. She said something often that a lot of 12-year-old girls feel. She'd say, Mom, I don't have any friends.
Mhm,
And I would start to say, oh, but what about Brittany? And what about, Karen? And what about Trisha? And her eyes would kind of roll back because I wasn't hearing her. And, after being asked this week after week, I don't have anyone to do anything with. I don't have any friends. I started to get a little frustrated and mad and wanted to say, no, this is enough, Kristen. And then I thought about all the times I've gone to God with, I just don't feel like I can do this. I don't feel like I know the answer. I don't feel like I'm equipped for this. And He never turns us away with,
mhm.
you've asked me this enough, accept what I've told you, and
Mm,
get on with things.
mhm.
He kindly engages every time. The psalmist said the loving kindness of God endures forever. And for moms who are trying to endure right now, I think it's good to know that God has to endure us. The difference is it's his nature to endure us, to love us, no matter what we do or how often we come to him with the same complaints. But if we really get that, I think we might have a sense of belonging to something bigger than us that can help us endure this time. That, as you've said, requires courage, requires compassion, and requires a connection to the people that we are around.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And it brings to mind a phrase that people sing about and write about and talk about all the time, that you can be in a room full of people and still feel lonely.
Mm.
And that connection is so important, but you have to connect with God, you have to connect with yourself, and then you can begin to connect with others in a meaningful way, which is what we're wired for, by the way. We're wired to connect with other people.
And you just summarized my book, Belonging. It really is simply those three things, that you connect with your own story, and you connect your story to God's story, and then you can connect to other people's stories. But I think about moms, it is kind of wired into our day that we go in and out of disconnection. You may be feeling connected to some inspiring thought or song, and then the dryer buzzer goes off and you have to look for those socks like you talked about,
Mhm.
or the baby starts crying, or the kids start fighting, or the computer screen dings with an online lesson that's due, and we go in and out of connection, and then we sit down for a few minutes of rest, and what do? We pick up our phones
Yeah.
and we start scrolling on that social media and seeing how everyone else looks really good in their highlight reel, and we disconnect. We feel fear, we feel shame, we feel inferiority, we feel annoyed, we feel disrupted, we feel disoriented, and all those things make us disconnect. And so we think, I'm not going to get on that Zoom call tonight for my small group, or maybe with a happy hour party with my friends. I'm not going to meet someone at the park so our kids can play. I'm just going to stay home and watch television or play a game on my phone, which is more disconnection. And what neurobiologists have told us, neuroscientists have told us, is that the brain, when it goes in and out of connection, which moms have to do somewhat,
Mhm.
but then we intensify it by
Mhm.
thinking the rest from all that exhaustion of going in and out of disconnection is more disconnecting behaviors. Have 3 glasses of wine, watch 6 episodes of some binge watching show. Just stay by yourself. Don't tell
Mhm.
anyone what you're really feeling. That disconnection is actually more exhausting than getting up, getting on that Zoom group, going to the park and meeting a friend, letting the kids play, calling someone and saying, I'm just having a day where I hate being a mom. Those moments of connection will actually bring rest.
Amen. Yeah.
And rest is what I think moms are craving today. I'm not saying we shouldn't have alone time where we can recharge and do some reading or take a walk or watch a television show. But I'm saying that if we don't have some connection outside of the walls of our house,
Mhm.
we are prone to sink into depression and despair, especially as women. The number one cause of depression for women is feeling like you don't have a voice, like no one's hearing you. Well, when you tell your kids 12 times to get off TikTok, you feel like you do not have a voice. And sometimes your husband may come home and he's worried about work and he doesn't want to hear about the TikTok battle. But there are other moms who might.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that we have, you talk about social media, and I think that we have mistaken, I follow people on social media that they don't know me, but I connect with their story. I connect with their life, and that's great, and there are people that inspire me, but I think we have mistaken that for the real in-person connection that we need. And so we go to that mindless scrolling because we want to turn our brains off, but we're going looking for those people that we follow, because we connect with them on some level, but we are substituting that for connecting with people who are going to hear us and who are going to identify with us. And then we get into this spiral thinking that, oh gosh, no one's going to agree with me on this issue. Or, we see the shaming that happens online with homeschooling, not homeschooling, clean eating versus not clean eating, and vaccinating versus not vaccinating. And I think that we fear that, because we're seeing all of this noise online, we fear that if we open up to the real people in our lives, that they're going to judge us and call us out in the same way. So it's like, you know what? I'm not even going to go there. Yes, my 6-year-old won't wear a mask for more than 30 seconds. And so if that mom sees my kid take his mask off, then she's going to call me out. And we get into this vortex and just go inward. And like you said, it's a recipe for anxiety and depression and disconnection.
And yet, I mean, I don't want to seem too old here, so I'm going to say there's room for both. There's room for some of those tiny flashes of connection we may feel on social media,
Hmm.
but we need that face to face, soul to soul, even if it's online.
Hmm.
Like, you and I definitely come from different generations, different places in life right now. My kids are grown. You have two teenagers.
Hmm.
And yet, we could sit down and talk about vaccinations and maybe have a debate. And that would be a disconnecting experience.
Right.
But if we sat down, I have never, ever seen it not happen. If you sit
Hmm.
down with someone, no matter what they believe about masks or about breastfeeding or about social media, uh, or about piercings or tattoos for teenagers, if you sit down and say something like, I've been feeling lonely, I long to have a community where we can tell the truth. And then you say, oh, I long for that too.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then we're connected.
Yeah.
It really is those heart issues that we have been taught in this culture and taught by social media to avoid at all costs because they make us vulnerable. They could make us look foolish. They could make us look like we don't know what we're doing.
Hmm.
But nobody really knows what they're doing.
I
And
always lead off with that. Yep, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't have the answers. I believe this way about this issue, but I don't know what I'm doing. And that, whether you agree with someone or not, that automatically creates connection between us when we can all just buck up and admit that we don't have all the answers and we don't have it all together, and that's okay. And that's what's going to make us the friendships that I think moms so long for.
so, what if there are some moms listening? Because I know a few that are saying, well, I don't have friends like that. I don't have friends where I can be real. We may talk about issues or what's going right in potty training, but not what's going wrong, because that would look like I'm messing up. What do you say to those moms?
Your people are out there. Your
Mhm.
tribe is out there, and it takes it takes courage, because we're afraid to, like you said, admit that something is going wrong. It takes a lot of courage to be the first one to say, I don't have it all together. And I brag about that and I joke about that, but it's scary to say I've had trouble in this area of motherhood. I've had trouble in this area of household. I've had trouble in this area of marriage. It's hard and it's scary, but it's worth it. And it won't be a room full of people. It won't be dozens and dozens of friends. But if you can find that one person that can put their arm around you and say, I've been there too, all of that fear and trying to admit those things will have been worth it. And that courage will have been worth it.
And so maybe a gift of this season, where if truth be told, no one is having meaningful moments all day long with their children.
No.
Most moms are stressed. Some stressed in ways that we cannot dismiss. There's not enough money for groceries. They're trying to work or they don't have a job anymore. And they're doing online education and trying to keep their kids encouraged and not fearful about this season. And so I think one of the gifts of this season may be that it is easier to find our people because
Oh, yeah.
everyone is really struggling with some disorientation and disillusionment and confusion and loneliness. Some have said that this season has revealed an epidemic of inner emptiness because we're filling ourselves with all those issues that you talked about, and they don't feed the soul. Having your children in a picture perfect family photo does not nourish us.
No, that's the
Being
most stressful of all.
posting a report card with straight A's does not feed the soul of you or your child.
Mhm.
It's talking about those human realities that we were made for more than accomplishment, that we were certainly made for more than pain and stress, and that we start to find that way by joining one another. When I started writing this book about the way back to relationships, it prompted a story from my children's childhood. Now you have to remember this was, 25 years ago. So I'm giving myself a little out here already feeling like, oh, you're going to judge me for this. But my we had a Jeep Grand Cherokee that my kids, every time we went to get in the car, would say, I want to ride in the way back. That kind of
Oh, the
excitement
way back. I remember the way back.
in the back where there aren't seat belts.
Yes.
And of course, I'd always say, no, get in your seatbelt. And except for when we went on road trips. In fact, I know you're on a road trip right now. Um, but after, an hour or so of that sniping, Mommy, she breathed on me. Mom, she touched my elbow. And then they started spitting and hitting. I would say, okay, you can ride in the way back if you'll be good. And something magical happened when the dividing lines were erased and we relaxed the rules of what you should be doing. And pretty soon they were whispering secrets and giggling about stories and putting band-aids on imaginary wounds and actually have some fond memories of those road trips. And I think that's what we're encouraging moms to do is don't talk about the dividing lines. That's going to disconnect you.
Mhm. Mhm.
Relax some rules maybe that you've had for yourself and say, I don't know how to do this. I don't want to do this. I
Mhm.
need some support, some ideas, maybe just a break for 2 hours.
Mhm. Yeah, and that creates connection and friendship with other women. And I would say too that when we can tell our kids, hey kid, I don't know how to do this. I've never been a mom of a 16-year-old girl before. That opens up more connection with my kids than anything else. Like, hey, we're figuring out this thing together.
Yes, I think 16, even some 7 or 8 year olds kind of get tired of those teaching moments.
Yes.
And they want connection too. I mean,
Yeah.
I say moms are human beings, but kids, even teenagers, are human beings too. And
Mhm. Your
Teach
5-year-old is a human being. You can say, "Hey, I've never homeschooled a 5-year-old before. Can let's work together on this." That is, I think, such a powerful thing in parenting as well.
Oh, I agree. And I think it fosters this belonging because there's a sense of, okay, we're doing it together. My mom is not doing this to me.
Right.
We are doing this together.
Mhm. Yeah.
So far, it seems like we've encouraged moms to have the courage to figure out what is right for you in this
Right.
season.
Yes.
And then foster that environment and connection with your children. But that will never be enough. It always leaves um, the space that's still not completely filled in our longing to be connected to more than us. And that's where we get connected to God stories. You know, I was thinking about the women that Jesus connected with in the New Testament, and they were all stressed out women. They were widows, mothers of sick children, um, moms who didn't have enough money for groceries. They were women who had made terrible mistakes and were gossiped about in their community. They were women who didn't know what to do with themselves sometimes and got too busy. And I think Jesus' message to all of them comes in that story of Mary and Martha. I mean, let's admit it, I write about this in my book. We all kind of get Martha. Like
Yeah.
when we have people over, when I have people over, I'm in the kitchen, I'm tidying things
Oh,
up, I'm
yes.
thinking about serving people, I'm asking if I can refill your glass, I'm making sure everybody else is talking and feeling connected. We get Martha.
Mhm.
And there was Mary, just hanging on every word Jesus said, not looking very productive. And Jesus said, Mary has chosen the important way, the best way,
Mhm.
which of course meant she chose him, the way. And I think one thing we can all do, whether our children are in their 30s like mine, or teenagers like yours, or newborns, preschoolers, as
Uh-oh. We'll be right back. I wish I knew a joke. I only know dirty jokes, which I don't think Sharon would appreciate. See if there are any questions or comments that I can answer. Let's see.
We are back on. I am so sorry for imperfect internet, but good thing to um, experience in this program that is about being free to be imperfect. Can you hear me, Kristen? You can't hear me.
I promise we'll be right back. There you
Oh,
are.
okay. Sorry for the imperfection, but a great example of us doing it. Because I'm tempted to panic and look at my screen and um, think, oh no, people are going to think we don't know what we're doing, and we don't. And yet we can do what we're encouraging moms to do, to say, come on back, be here now, and don't beat yourself up.
We're here. Don't beat yourself up. This is how we learn. This is how we connect. Hey,
And
we're
it's not going
imperfect.
to be perfect.
Yep.
And I think if perfection is your goal, this is why I encourage moms to listen to the Confessions of the Supermom Wannabe. If perfection is your goal, then, you know, a break in a broadcast like this could take you out for the whole day as you beat yourself up and think, what's wrong with my internet? I'm going to call my internet company and I'm going to complain to them and I'm going to apologize to everyone. And yet I feel like that's all disconnecting behavior rather than saying, there are a lot of bumps and obstacles on this road in this season, and we can be with one another.
Yes.
So this morning we've talked about belonging to yourself, and we've talked about creating belonging with your children by admitting you don't know things. You've never done this before. That, especially in this season, we are together in trying to figure out what works for our family, for each individual child, which might be different. And we can only sustain that without getting exhausted and discouraged and giving up if we're connected to a story of a parent, a father, God, who always chooses us, hears every complaint again and again. I often tell him, I don't really trust you today. I feel like it's up to me. And he says, I know. And then he just hangs in there with me. And that can give us the foundation for belonging.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's such a powerful point that so many times we think it's all up to us. And I think that that phrase sums up every anxious thought, every stressful moment that I've ever had is when I think it's all up to me. And I think a lot of moms feel that way. It's up to me to hold everything together. And
Right.
when we
And
can release that
outcomes for my
trust.
children are up to me. So
Right.
if I need them to not be swearing, to not be sneaking out in the middle of the night, to not be biting people in the nursery at church, to be sleeping through the night by a certain age. And all of those are moments of disconnection instead of saying, we'll figure this out together. I remember one of those moments when I had two children under the age of 3 and they were cranky and fighting and crying. And it was not as stressful as this season. But my mother came over and she could tell that I was on the brink. And she said, Sharon, you go do something for a couple hours. I'll take care of the kids. And I just started to cry. And she said, Oh, Sharon, there will be many days when you will feel like giving up on this thing. But just remember, your kids don't need you to be perfect. They
Mhm.
need you to know that you love them. And
Yeah.
isn't that what we need from God, too? I think God whispers, I don't need you to be perfect. I just want you to know I love you. You are gorgeous. I adore you, especially when you're real.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. That's all we need. That's all we need.
So, as we get ready to finish today, Kristen, I mean, there's so much that we haven't addressed because neither you or I are big on to do lists. Like, if you find someone who tells you exactly how to get through this season, run away from them
Right. Yeah.
because it's the opposite of what we're saying. We're saying connect to your true self, which is full of self compassion,
Mhm.
curiosity, um, some clarity at moments because you figured out what's true for you. We're saying
Yeah.
be connected to your children in real ways. Sometimes saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know what that lesson means. I don't know what to have for dinner. I never know what to have for dinner. I don't know where your socks are, but let's find the way together.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then as moms, we will be more rested if we connect with one another, telling the truths, the stories of our life, even if we're ready to give up on the second day of online education. And if we're rooted in a connection with a God who says in Matthew, in the language of a mother, oh, how I would have gathered you to me like a mother hen gathers her chicks. I think we talk a lot about Father God, and we don't talk about God as mother
Mm.
who longs for us, wants
Mhm.
to gather us to Him, wants to love us and feed us and nourish us.
Mm.
That's what I long for moms to find in this season when there's not a lot of other people or places to go to. So why not try God?
Absolutely. We'll never be disappointed.
As we end, Kristen, I wonder if you would have something encouraging that you want to say to the moms who are listening.
You know, no mom in the history of moms has ever had to do what we as moms are doing right now. No one has had to deal with a pandemic and social media and all the pressures that we face in our society right now. And you're doing a great job. No one has ever had to do what you are accomplishing. If you are living and breathing and your kids are living and breathing, that's a good sign that you're surviving. You're surviving a pandemic. You're surviving something that has not happened in our history, and you're doing it well. Even when you don't think that you're doing it well. On your worst days, you are the perfect mom for your kids, and you are going where no other mom has gone before. I think we lost Sharon again. But thank you all for being here. Thank you so much for listening. I am just in love with this book. I can't wait to read it. And I think that we can all get something out of Sharon's words about belonging. Thank you all.